U.S.-listed shares of Chinese companies plummeted on Monday after President Xi Jinping's new leadership team sparked investor concerns that ideology-driven policies would be prioritized at the cost of private sector growth. E-commerce giants Alibaba, JD.com, and internet behemoth Baidu all crashed Monday morning, even as the benchmark S&P 500 edged higher. The steep drop comes after Xi secured a precedent-breaking third leadership term on Sunday and introduced the new Politburo Standing Committee stacked with loyalists. It also follows a strange scene during the closing ceremony of the Communist Party Congress on Saturday, when former President Hu Jintao, seated next to Xi, was escorted off the stage. Strategists at TD Securities said, quote, "The departure of perceived pro-stimulus officials and reformers and replacement with allies of Xi suggests that common prosperity will be the overriding push of officials." Rick Meckler, a partner at Cherry Lane Investments, said the, quote, "concern is that the Chinese government is continuing to move to a more socialist economic model under Xi, which may require Chinese companies to place ever more focus on social goals rather than profitability." Earlier in the day, Hong Kong stocks slumped to 13-year lows as investor worries over the direction of the world's second-largest economy overshadowed upbeat third-quarter growth data. Shares of Chinese electric vehicle companies NIO, XPeng, and Li Auto fell significantly as well on Monday. The EV makers were also weighed down by Tesla cutting the price of cars in China for the first time this year, indicating signs of softening demand in the world's largest auto market.
A well-known Pakistani journalist has been shot dead in Nairobi. Arshad Sharif was killed on Sunday when police, hunting car thieves, opened fire on the vehicle he was traveling in. The car drove through their roadblock without stopping, according to a police report. It said a relative of Sharif had been driving the car. A Kenyan police watchdog said it is investigating the incident. Sharif's death has sparked widespread outrage in Pakistan, including on social media from officials, journalists, and others. Former Prime Minister Imran Khan condemned the death and said Sharif had been murdered for his journalistic work. He called for a judicial investigation into the incident. A senior Kenyan police officer told local media that the shooting was being treated as a case of mistaken identity. Sharif worked for many years as a primetime television news show host for ARY News in Pakistan. He had recently fled the country, citing threats to his life. It was not immediately clear when he had arrived in Kenya.
U.S. stocks closed higher on Monday, extending last week's rally as signs of economic weakness led investors to hope the Federal Reserve might ease up on its aggressive interest rate hikes. The Dow rose 1.33%, the S&P 500 added 1% and change, while the Nasdaq gained just shy of 1%. A report from S&P Global showed a contraction in business activity this month, offering a hint that the Fed's barrage of steep interest rate hikes are having their desired effect. Mike Muscio, president at FBB Capital Partners, said that's raising hopes the central bank could begin slowing the pace of rate increases.
You're starting to see some data points in terms of the broader economy that are continue to be, not other than just inflation, that continue to be worse than expected. And so the expectation is you have 200 PhD economists at the Fed that are sitting around looking at everything, and thereby the more bad data there is, bad news maybe leads to good news. The good news being that maybe the Federal Reserve is done skipping 2 steps every time they raise rates, 75 basis points, and maybe we just skip 1 step and then eventually we don't skip any steps at all.
Shares of Microsoft and Google parent Alphabet rose ahead of their earnings reports due on Tuesday. Shares of Apple also gained. The iPhone maker is set to post results on Wednesday. Shares of Tesla slid after the electric automaker cut prices for its Model 3 and Model Y cars by as much as 9% in China, signaling softening demand in the world's largest auto market. And U.S.-listed shares of Chinese companies such as Tencent, JD.com, and Baidu plunged as investors worried President Xi Jinping's tighter grip on power and new leadership team would lead to ideology-driven policies that could hurt the country's private sector.
Jury selection began on Monday in the tax fraud trial of former U.S. President Donald Trump's family business, a case in which the Trump Organization is accused of awarding off-the-books benefits to some senior executives. Attorney William Brennan is defending the firm.
We're figuring it's going to be probably a good solid week for jury selection,
The trial opened after the Manhattan District Attorney's Office last year charged Trump's namesake real estate company and Alan Weisselberg, its then chief financial officer. In August, Weisselberg pleaded guilty to helping the company defraud tax authorities for 15 years, in an agreement with prosecutors that requires him to testify at this trial. The charges to which Weisselberg pleaded guilty included grand larceny and tax fraud, and he admitted concealing $1.76 million in income. As a result, lawyers for the Trump Organization have said they're prepared to accuse the longtime CFO of lying. The Trump Organization, which operates hotels, golf courses, and other real estate around the world, could face up to $1.6 million in fines for the 3 tax fraud counts and 6 other counts it faces. The company has pleaded not guilty. Trump himself is not charged in the case. The criminal tax trial is but one of the legal hurdles facing the former president.
We are filing a lawsuit against Donald Trump for violating the law as part of his efforts to generate profits for himself, his family, and his company.
Last month, the New York Attorney General filed a $250 million lawsuit against Trump, 3 of his adult children, and his company, accusing them of overstating asset values and his net worth to get favorable bank loans and insurance coverage. He also faces a criminal investigation in Georgia related to election meddling, and a Justice Department probe into allegations he illegally retained classified materials after he left office.
U.S. prosecutors charged alleged Chinese spies with trying to obtain secret documents in what U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland on Monday said was one of 3 different schemes by Beijing meddling in U.S. affairs or targeting U.S. residents.
The Justice Department will not tolerate attempts by any foreign power to undermine the rule of law upon which our democracy is based. We will continue to fiercely protect the rights guaranteed to everyone in our country, and we will defend the integrity of our institutions.
Prosecutors charged Chinese nationals Guo Chunhe and Zhen Wang with paying bribes to a U.S. agent they believed would provide them with intelligence related to the prosecution of a Chinese telecommunications company. To do that, it alleges they tried to recruit someone from a U.S. law enforcement agency who they thought would help them spy for China. But the recruit was working as a double agent for the United States under FBI supervision. While court documents did not name the company, a person familiar with the investigation said they were trying to interfere with the prosecution of Huawei. Huawei was indicted in 2018 for allegedly misleading HSBC and other banks about its business in Iran, which is subject to U.S. sanctions. In 2020, other charges were added to the case, including conspiring to steal trade secrets from 6 U.S. tech companies and helping Iran track protesters during anti-government demonstrations in 2009. The firm has pleaded not guilty. A spokesperson for Huawei could not be reached for comment on Monday. China's embassy did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Federal prosecutors announced charges in 2 other alleged schemes, including an effort to intimidate and harass a Chinese national into returning to China.
As these cases demonstrate, the government of China sought to interfere with the rights and freedoms of individuals in the United States and to undermine our judicial system that protects those rights. They did not succeed.